Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So I wanted to do this quick live to cover this story about a professor who identifies as trans, who gave a Christian student a big fat zero on an essay about gender. So she was given a prompt, I believe an article. Let's take a look here. I'll share this with you guys. Hi everyone, thanks for joining. So I'll just go over this article quickly. So a graduate assistant was removed from her position amid investigations into a contested discrimination report filed by a disgruntled student who repeatedly referenced the Bible in an essay response to an article about gender stereotypes. So it was about gender stereotypes and, apparently the essay itself wasn't very good. But people were questioning, why did the student get a big fat zero? Really? Zero? And she referenced the Bible, he made us male and female, and she only believes in two genders. And unfortunately, there was some people would say not unfortunately, but she did use some language such as demonic. And the professor, obviously took issue with that because this professor does identify as trans. So this is what happened a couple of months ago. So in her essay, which was supposed to cover how people are perceived based on societal expectations of gender, University of Oklahoma student Samantha Fulnicki presented a biblical-fueled tirade against the notion that there are multiple genders. And I think that's a bit, well, what's New York Post doing here? The psychology course's professor, graduate student Mel Kurth, who uses she, her pronouns, failed Fulnicki on the grounds that she neglected to address the prompt and relied on personal ideology and empirical evidence, according to the bombshell thread shared by the university's Turning Point USA chapter. So she reached out to her Turning Point USA chapter, and they backed her. In the essay, Fulnicki repeats ad nauseum that she doesn't take issue with gender stereotypes because that is how God made us. However, she neglected to cite the article she was responding to, saved for a vague reference to teasing as a way to enforce gender norms. So the professor was saying that, you didn't even refer to the prompt, the article itself, and you were more focused on talking about your religion, talking about the Bible, and, refer to certain groups of people as being demonic. So she got a zero. However, this student claimed that this was religious discrimination and that the professor was just, I guess, offended that she referenced the Bible to begin with. She devoted the bulk of the around 650-word essay to discussing how children are detrimentally impacted by beliefs in multiple genders. But it's unclear if that was a focus of the original article the class had to analyze. So here's some quotes. Society pushing the lie that there are multiple genders and everyone should be whatever they want to be is demonic and severely harms American youth. Okay, so there she's saying that the idea itself, is demonic. Hi guys, thank you for joining me. I really wasn't expecting anybody to even be on here. I have to get this story out and I'm doing it live so that there's no editing. And, I haven't even had my coffee yet. But yeah, thanks for joining, guys. And Merry Christmas to you. I live my life based on this truth and firmly believe that there would be less gender issues and insecurities in children if they were raised knowing that they do not belong to themselves, but they belong to the Lord, she added. So I can understand, you know, academically speaking, she's not addressing the article, she's not addressing gender stereotypes. That's what the professor argued. But he also said that at times it was offensive. To call an entire group of people demonic is highly offensive, especially a minoritized population. And you can say that strict gender norms don't create gender stereotypes, but that isn't true by definition of what a stereotype is. Please note that acknowledging gender stereotypes does not immediately denote a negative connotation, nuanced this article discusses, she added. Which one is, we're talking about the student. Oh no, sorry. This is the professor, so yeah. And he's basically saying that there was a lot of contradictions. So look, I get perhaps it wasn't the best essay. Maybe it wasn't addressing the prompt as she was instructed to do. Maybe there wasn't much reference to stereotypes. But this is what happened with this whole story in terms of the student claiming religious discrimination.
A University of Oklahoma student is getting national attention after submitting an essay that got a grade of 0. The educator who graded it is now on leave.
The student is Samantha Fulnecki, and she spoke earlier today during a Conservative Foundation's event.
News 4's Dylan Brown joins us in studio. And Dylan, you talked to her about the essay and her classmate who got a grade of 100 on theirs.
Yeah, that's right. So two basically students at OU. So that student that looked at Fulnecki's essay and ended up saying that there were many grammatical errors, punctuation errors, no title, her name isn't even on it. That educator who graded it put on leave after Fulnecki claimed she got a 0 on the essay because of her Christian beliefs and went all the way to Governor Stitt to complain about it.
So it's a teaching assistant, and the essay was garbage. I don't agree with religion or gender ideology being used when it comes to biology. You can debunk the gender nonsense without using religion. So it does come across as if she was very heavy on the religious references, on the biblical references. And the question is, was that addressing the essay itself? But they have found that there was religious discrimination, according to the University of Oklahoma. So let's carry on with this.
Please note that I am not deducting points because you have certain beliefs. That's the first line a psychology teaching assistant at the University of Oklahoma wrote after giving student Samantha Fulnecki a 0 out of 25. Fulnecki argues it was because of her beliefs.
It has to do with me talking about God in it and my stance on gender.
But the professor right away said it doesn't have anything to do with the belief.
Right, but anyone would say that too, make themselves look better.
She's a junior at OU. She turned in this essay a couple weeks ago, the assignment to outline her thoughts on this article about gender's effect on society. Here's some of the rubric. It was supposed to be 650 words, much of the rubric making the student point back to the article. This is what Fulnecki turned in, less than 650 words. She gave her opinions on gender, how society views it, but there were grammatical errors, and she never named the authors or any points within the article besides at the beginning.
They were simply talking about beliefs associated with the Bible, which I feel as though is not academically stable.
Out of fear of retaliation, this University of Oklahoma student wants to remain anonymous. They've taken the same class.
There wasn't any citations for the Bible either.
They never required any evidence or anything to support my opinion. They were just asking for my opinion.
We got access to a student's paper from that same class. This student names the authors, names their points in the article throughout it.
Her name wasn't on it. The instructor course was not on it.
It wasn't just that TA who looked at the paper. Another professor also reviewed it and agreed with the grade given. Other educators have graded the paper themselves, finding issues, including lines like, "Women naturally want to do womanly things because God created us with those womanly desires in our hearts." run-on sentences. But at the heart of it all, the TA, who identifies as transgender, and was asking for the student's opinion as it's related to the article itself.
I had no idea that the TA was transgender.
This isn't about religious discrimination.
Almost immediately after getting the 0, Fulnecki put in an appeal, messaged Governor Stitt, and turned to OU's Turning Point USA chapter. OU itself over the weekend stated the teaching assistant was put on administrative leave.
I think if you can't do your job correctly in any setting, you get fired.
That people are sick of these things happening, and that across the board, things like TPUSA and things like other extremist organizations have a chokehold over people like the president of OU.
Fulnecki, a guest speaker Wednesday at the Right-Wing Religious Foundation OC-PAC meeting. She claimed there it's a fight against religious discrimination.
I've never really been interested in politics, if I'm being honest, until now.
And there is a protest set for Friday on campus hosted by OU students in response to this overwhelming national attention.
Wow. So, I mean, he called TPUSA an extremist organization. I guess there's just different fractions, on campus between certain groups, clearly. And so the teaching assistant, professor, educator, was put on leave pending an investigation. So let's see what you guys are saying. These people don't respect anyone's religion or ideology, but expect everyone to bow down to and agree with their ideology. Well, I can agree with that. So, I guess I can see some truth into the essay itself not being very good. She didn't even put her name on it. Okay. And apparently she didn't know that the educator was transgender. She didn't know. So it's not necessarily she was trying to preach to him per se. She just was addressing the actual topic of gender. I think her essay was probably a frustrated response to the fact that she knew that being in this woke climate, she knew that they wanted to hear. She knew what they wanted to hear. So she wrote the antithetical opposite. Yeah, I think it did sound like it was, I haven't read every word of the essay. I'm just going on the examples given. It sounded that a lot of it was out of frustration. And she went on, she gave a big speech about why there are only 2 genders, and there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that you're either male or female as God created us. In her eyes, she took that as a focus. That's what it appears to be. But the University of Oklahoma, they have spoken. I'll share this with you guys. And they have removed the trans instructor who gave the Christian students Bible-based essay a 0. So the University of Oklahoma announced Monday that it has stripped a graduate student of their teaching duties for giving a Christian student a 0 on her Bible-based essay, calling the grade arbitrary. So they're saying that, what basis is this, did you use? What criteria did you use to come to 0? And they're saying it's arbitrary, based on an examination of the graduate teaching assistant's prior grading standards and patterns, as well as the graduate teaching assistant's own statements related to this matter. It was determined that the graduate teaching assistant was arbitrary in the grading of this specific paper. The graduate teaching assistant will no longer have instructional duties at the university. And the university had recently faced the threat of funding cuts from Republican state lawmakers over the controversy regarding the essay, in which Christian student Samantha Fulnecki wrote a paper about why she opposes modern gender ideology for her online psychology class. The assignment asked students to react to an article about gender stereotypes, including why you feel the topic is important and worthy of study or not, and how the study applies to your own experiences. And she wrote that traditional gender roles should not be considered stereotypes. and that transgenderism deviates from God's original plan for humans. Society pushing the lie that there are multiple genders and everyone should be whatever they want to be is demonic. Oh, I read that already. So this is what they said in a statement. Oh, so let me read what the attorney said, actually. I have to get this done before everybody gets up. So the TA's attorney said, my client, Mel Kerf, received notification from the University of Oklahoma that an investigation determined that she engaged in arbitrary grading of a student's paper. Ms. Kerf continues to deny that she engaged in an arbitrary behavior Ms. Kerf continues to deny that she engaged in any arbitrary behavior regarding the student's work and is considering all of her legal remedies, including appealing this decision by the university. And the university said that Fulnicki's grade appeal was decided in favor of the student, removing the assignment completely from the student's total point of value of the class, resulting in no academic harm to the student. Okay. So they're not going to use this assignment to determine her final grade. The claim for discrimination has been investigated and concluded. The university does not release findings from such investigations. So I'll go over the statement quickly. And yeah, there you have it. This TA has been removed. Right, where are you guys? Can't see anybody. It amazes me that the students have determined the other student wrote a bad paper. Make it make sense. Hey there. So let's, the actual statement itself. Oh my goodness, there's so many things to share. I don't even know. Okay. I'll just read the highlighted points. This is the statement itself, though, released on their page. So a student's claim of religious discrimination on an individual assignment is in an online psychology course taught by a graduate teaching assistant has come to a resolution. As stated previously, the student followed two available processes at the university, the graduate appeals process in the college, and she made a formal claim of illegal religious discrimination. As already announced, the grade appeal was decided in favor of the student, removing the assignment completely from her grade. I've read that already. So the claim for discrimination has been investigated and concluded. The university does not release findings. At the same time of the investigation, the provost, the university's highest ranking academic officer, and the academic dean reviewed the full facts of the matter. Based on the examination of the graduate teaching assistant's prior grading standards, as well as the graduate teaching assistant's own statements related to this matter. Okay, yeah, so that was when they concluded it was arbitrary. So, I mean, there are people who don't agree with this whole gender thing, who are saying, objectively speaking, it wasn't a good essay, and not necessarily siding with the professor, but saying that she didn't really address the assignment that was given to her. So there are people saying that, even people who don't agree with all of this, there are a million genders type of thing, or even agree with somebody bringing their, trans identity to the workplace. Even people who don't agree with that, they're still saying that objectively speaking, it wasn't a good assignment and it didn't address the topic at hand. Because I do believe, in an academic setting, you are allowed to give opposing views that go against the general standard, especially in these woke universities. There's definitely a general ideology that is pushed regardless. But even with doing that, you can give an opposing view that may go against the grain, but you still have to obviously address the actual task that's been given to you. And it may not necessarily be the case of him just being offended because she mentioned the Bible. It may not strictly be that, but at the same time, she got a 0. So it's like, wow. That in itself is where people think that he was just offended. So they were kind of like, two extremes. It's she was just preaching, she didn't even address the topic that was given, the task, and she was just ranting, addressing this insanity. And then there's the other extreme where people are saying he was just offended and punished her by giving her a 0. And the university have said that your grading wasn't very clear, and so we find in favor of the student. That's where we're at with this story. So let's have some reactions from people. I'll just share this with you guys. Okay.
So y'all remember that University of Oklahoma student who stood against the transgender professor? We shared that story yesterday. She spoke out.
Sorry, let me start this again. I messed up with the, just make sure you can see that. Okay, great.
So y'all remember that University of Oklahoma student who stood against the transgender professor? We shared that story yesterday. She spoke out. Listen to this. This is how you stand for your faith. I'm talking to you, men.
I just did the assignment and turned it in. And I talked about the Bible in it. That is, I view all of my opinions in the world through the Bible.
Samantha Fulnecki is a junior at OU. She says when she submitted an essay reacting to an article for her psychology class, she got a 0. The graduate instructor, who is transgender, was the one grading it. They called it offensive and said it lacked empirical evidence.
So I gave my opinion, and not just my opinion, but that's like the Bible says that God created male and female, and anything that's not from God or glorifying to God is glorifying to the enemy.
Here are excerpts of the essay. She says, society pushing the lie of multiple genders is demonic and believes it's against God's will.
That's what I meant by that. The demonic thing is that I didn't mean for that to be offensive, but the truth will naturally offend people. And so I think that's why people are kind of viewing that as offensive.
So would you have a problem having a transgender teacher?
I wouldn't, not if they're able to separate their kind of beliefs and things from grading, then I don't, really care who my professors are.
She was supposed to be graded on whether there was an understanding of the article, whether it was a clear reaction, and whether the main ideas were organized in a coherent discussion. She got a 0 out of 25 points and filed a complaint against OU, claiming her religious freedom was violated. That instructor's been put on administrative leave.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Someone said it wasn't a opinion-based essay. Sorry, it wasn't a factual-based essay. They found in her favor for a reason and fired the trans individual after a full investigation. Yeah, that's right. I would like to know who set the paper, the professor or TA. Were they looking for affirmation letters? I'm not even defending the TA. I'm against the trans agenda and for freedom of speech. The essay was terrible. So yeah, that's where we're at now. Is she going to appeal? We shall see. Do you think, is the professor, the male, going to appeal? Do you think the TA rather, do you think the TA will have grounds for appeal? It does seem like, based on what his lawyer said, that there is an intention to appeal. And, we're living in a different climate now. One of the articles mentioned that this university has, as many universities, have been threatened with the loss of federal funding for continuing to push this whole, there are, multiple genders and all of this ideology. The universities, as of now, I'm not very optimistic about the idea of sending my kids to university. It's not something that I'm going to encourage as of now, to be honest. Or I guess you're just going to have to really research thoroughly, not just general things that people research when they go to university, but what ideology do they push? It came out recently, a lot of these colleges, the student population is very heavily leaning left, and there's very few Republicans, or at least people who are openly Republican on campus. So that says it all, really. The essay was 6th grade level. She deserved a failing grade. If you pull a stunt like that, you deserve to be ridiculed. The identity of the TA is irrelevant. Okay? So based on the essay itself, I think people are kind of seeing why she failed. But then there's the other side who are like, I'm just sick of this. I'm sick of, again, some people are even saying, why is there even an essay on gender? But, we do talk about stereotypes. It's a psychology class. So, it's a matter of whether you think we should even be discussing these matters to begin with. Like, what is the reason? Is it to enrich somebody academically? Or is it more to push an ideology or to promote an ideology? Okay, let me see if I can see some more reactions from people. And then we'll wrap it up, I think. How do I get out of this? All right. So I would think people are celebrating this news, to be honest. Good. What about the students' failing grade? So they said it's not going to count. Indoctrination camps. They are no longer learning institutions. Nobody knows this better than me. Yeah, that's what I'm kind of leaning towards when it comes to these colleges. I'm so done with it. But at the same time, it's like, well, if you give up and just say we're not going to send our kids to college, then it's kind of driving people away. More surprised by the suspension than the act, unfortunately. Yeah, so I think we can wrap it up there. I'll see what you guys are saying, because I can hear people are getting up now. Oh dear. I have marked terrible essays, but never given a 0. Exactly. That was making a point. She was being scolded. Yeah, that's the impression I got. I can understand, like, if you go on some rant and you're not really addressing the task given, then you're gonna more than likely get a low grade. But to get a 0, it did seem like the TA was making a point. Yeah. In all of my schooling, you only got a 0 if you didn't complete an assignment at all. There's a difference between a bad grade and a 0. Yeah. That's where I think it's coming from. What criteria did you use to come to a 0? Like, she couldn't even be given any points whatsoever? Which criteria led you to give her a 0, as if she didn't even complete the assignment? So, there's that. But Sacked, yeah. I think the teacher could have gone about it in a different way. Not a 0, just a low grade. Yeah. And maybe some feedback. I mean, is this not where we're supposed to have discussions and, you know, even if you have opposing views, are we not able to discuss these matters? We could discuss stereotypes, which I think a lot of the trans movement is based on. It's basically stereotypes. If you wear pink, you're a girl. If you wear blue, you're a boy. And all this, I think the whole movement is based on that, which at the same time, they claim to be against that. So I can't keep up with it. But yeah, where's the conversation? A 0 doesn't leave anything open for any feedback, any conversation. Just, I'm not too happy about this, and you get a 0. There are criteria, and it was stated in advance. She did not do the assignment. Post the assignment, it was a 0 paper. It is not about opposing views, but scientific method. So yeah, like I said, I think overwhelmingly people are probably just happy at the response of the university, but there are people who are saying that it wasn't a good assignment, so the grade was justified. And now, it's like, yeah, he's no longer at the in that position. The teaching privileges have been removed from this individual. Trans instructor fired for failing students' Bible-based gender essay. So yeah, he no longer has teaching privileges. So that's where we're at now. We shall see if the TA is going to appeal. That shall be very interesting to see. What is a teaching assistant and what power do they hold? Are they qualified to be marking pupils' essays? Isn't that the teacher's job? So I believe he works alongside, he's assisting the professor, and he's a graduate student himself. I'm not sure if it's like research he's doing there. And as part of that role, he is given teaching privileges. So I believe he does have the authority to give grades, to set assignments and to grade the assignments that he sets. But, don't quote me. I believe that's what we're talking about here, though. And those teaching privileges have now been removed, so he can't teach. He can no longer have that work at the university in that capacity anymore, from my understanding. You guys want to give any more clarification in the comments? That would be great. The students are there for education, not to be indoctrinated. Yep. And until that comes to an end, unfortunately, things like this are going to continue to happen. We need to get back to, number one, getting rid of college courses that don't even benefit students, like gender studies. Getting rid of courses that are going to lead them to come out of university with a bunch of debt and not be able to actually get a job to pay that debt off, because your degree is in something that isn't in demand, isn't something that employers are scrambling to get people who are qualified in this field. Study something that is going to be in demand, and the goal of the university should be education, not indoctrination. And we've swayed so far away from education now that when they go there, I'm hearing terrible stories of people sending their kids to university. They come out and they're a completely different person in terms of their beliefs, their ideology. And yeah, they just seem to be indoctrination facilities now. And that's very, very disturbing indeed. So I stand by the university's decision. They've done their investigation. That's fine. I don't have a problem with it, to be honest. But I understand, people saying the assignment itself wasn't very good. So they're questioning the university's decision. But yeah. So let's have a couple of comments before I leave. I hope everybody has a lovely Christmas tomorrow, lovely break. I hope you have some time off and, spend time with family. They have to keep folks in university AI and automation taking job roles at an alarming rate. Yeah. Thanks, Kat. And you have a lovely day. I'm going to go off and have some coffee now. Some well-deserved coffee. I can't believe I did this whole live stream without having any at all. But so thanks for joining me. Thanks for all of your different opinions there. And thank you. Happy Christmas to you, yet another Lisa. And thank you for joining the membership. Really appreciate that. So I shall see you in the next video. Merry Christmas and all the best for the new year.